is how a group can sell 10 million records and be broke. And everyone, get ready to do your math. 100 points on an album. TLC had 7. Every point is equal to 8 cents. 7 times 8, 56 cents. That means every time an album gets sold, TLC gets 56 cents. Sell 10 million records, $5.6 million.
That's the addition. Now here's the subtraction. From that 5.6 million, the girls were contractually obligated to pay back both their record and production companies for expenses incurred on their behalf, including recording, travel, promotion, and music videos.
So LaFace Record had spent about $3 million on the second album. So that automatically gets deducted from the $5.6 million before we can see a penny. Now, we have $2.6 million left to split between the three of us. Well, guess what? When you have that much money, you're in about the 47, 48, 49% tax bracket. So that immediately gets deducted to $1.3 million.
Then subtract the percentages paid to their managers, lawyers, and accountants. After generating millions of dollars in profits, TLC's attorney says Tian, Lisa, and Chili each took home about $50,000 a year in 1993 and 94.
You know, there's been many conversations over the years about the industry, music industry, if you are in tune to music industry, obviously, generally in the US. And obviously I'm based in the UK. So, UK industry has always had some conversations as well, depending on who you're listening to. I've always looked at it as, okay, in moments, the industry will have its issues, right? In different eras, different artists talking about, some of the contracts that they've had. You heard TLC's Left Eye at the start of the video speaking about, the contract that they had. And that was a big, noise about that contract many years ago. I remember that one as well. I remember obviously that clip from the VH1 program. I've always looked at it as, like I said, there's been moments where artists have issues. But the issue is that the industry is broken, but it's always been broken. It's always been broken. I think it's always been a thing that artists don't look at it like that when they get in. Because you see a lot of people become famous, you see celebrities, you see people be, quote unquote, what is considered successful, selling a lot of records over the years, right? But really and truly, I believe it should be looked at that the industry is broken, and the people who have managed to be in the industry, whether it's artists that have managed to do well, maintain, live a decent life because they've managed to, do well with their money. The ones that do that, and that's a very small percent, they managed to do that. They got through. That's fine. But for the most part, most people don't get to do that. So I believe from that basis, it is broken. I think the industry has always been for the business-minded person. It's always been something that the industry was designed for people who have a business mind. If you look at so many cases back in the day, you will see many eras of different complaints taking place about artistry, music being taken, and different things that cause a gripe with artists and executives or the people who had the idea of commoditizing music. They were always in sometimes any kind of disputes with different people. You even go to a person called John Christian Bach. I believe he was from the UK in the 18th century. He had one of the early involvements in intellectual property being a thing when it comes to law. And he was one that had a gripe with publishers who said, you know what? I've seen his work and I'm going to take it and I'm going to try and sell it. So obviously he put a case, won it, and it turns out that he was more or less responsible for intellectual property as we know it today. You look back in many other cases when it comes to how artists have had to fight for different moments and different issues that they faced when it comes to the business-minded people who set up the industry, who set up these labels. You've seen the issues that they've had to face because they're not knowledgeable of the contracts that have been designed by the business-minded people. So I'm basically saying the industry has always been broken. It's just that people have managed to navigate whenever they've had a good team, whenever they've been favored by a label for whatever reason, they like them. There's been some good relationships. They've had a good moment of releasing music. They've had the right sounds. They've had the right marketing team, the right branding, everything. Sometimes you have to look at it as it has to coexist at a certain time for certain artists to flourish. And the ones who don't have that, unfortunately, they just have to maintain somehow. So this video is more about the industry being broken in general, and it's always been that way. So I want to focus mainly on when music was commoditized, was commercialized in the 19th century and all the way to what we see today. So I'm just basically looking at how the mentality has to take place from a lot of artists. It has to take place where they come in more with a business mind. Know that these labels are an investment business. Know that when you, the artist, are required to make music, you have to pay that back. And I think there's a general understanding of the advance that they are going to be paying you. You have to pay that back. But they have to recoup all the costs that they invest into you before you see your money. So I think this is the basic understanding that people know this, right? Especially if you're into music and you're an artist. It's just the fact that I think the nature of the mentality is we are going to do music and we are together. We're a partner. We're this. You have to look at yourself more or less, especially if you have no leverage, as an employee. To an extent, you're working on behalf of your label. Some of your biggest artists have been successful for the labels. Some deals are not that special when it comes to the magnitude of what some of these artists have achieved for some of these labels.
Like Mariah Carey just had this big $20 million. That's like a huge deal, right?
So you feeling that?
No, well, what I mean, I don't understand. What the public sees the word $20 million an album. Well,
let's see. Do you all think that's a good deal?
What, I mean, tell me why. I mean, what am I missing?
Okay, let's do some math.
Okay.
If
You do math like that?
Kinda. If you sign me,
Okay.
you signed me to a record company,
Right.
or a record deal. Let's suppose you have a record company.
Right.
How much would you give me? The album sells for $18, right? $18.
Whatever, yeah.
All right. How much of that would you give me?
Well, I don't know how it works.
Well, no.
Half?
Half? Half sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Check this out. If I sell 1 million copies, I'm gonna have $10 million, right? Roughly $10 million.
Right.
If I sell 2 million copies, I got $20 million.
Right.
If I just sell 3 million copies, I got $30 million. Now who has the biggest record deal?
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Okay.
Right?
Right.
So Mariah kind of got screwed.
I think some of the biggest artists over the years have proved that, look, they are the commodities and they are the ones that, without the artist, labels are not able to do what they do. It's always a two-way street. Labels, artists have to be working together in order for, the betterment of both people being good in what they've agreed to. Artists have different deal structures, so artists will obviously trying to think of the best ways to get the best deals they can get. But I think at the top, the industry is only made for the benefit of the executives and for the people that created and constructed some of these deals, and most importantly, some of these environments that house music. If you look at some of the industry moments right now that's taking place, musically, it's flourishing when it comes to even the UK, when it comes to the US, when it comes to instances of what is being made as a whole. Things are working out well for executives, right? But then if you talk about artists in general, the majority of artists, they're not seeing as much as you will hope for them and they will hope for themselves. They're not seeing that much. So the effort sometimes a lot of artists are doing, it's only in a way that they hope to get somewhere if they have the right team and at the right moments they release the music. And then on top of that, people like their branding and marketing. It's predicated on, we hope to get somewhere. We hope that the artists do well. Yes, we can look at data, but sometimes data doesn't determine the longevity of an artist, in my humble opinion. All it does is put a lot of pressure on artists, especially if they're on a major, to say, I'm going to create this kind of music that has been seen to do well in certain instances over the years. So I'm going to continue to do that and see if I can assimilate myself into this industry and see if I can get as far as I can get. And every time you're throwing music out there, you're being hopeful. You're throwing things on the wall, hoping it sticks. Because a lot of the time, as an artist, and you've got to look at it and say, how are you going to continually make the best of the moves you're making? And how are you going to make the music that can reach people so you can try and eat as much as you can? A lot of the time, industries have a reason as to why they've been set up. It is business. And that is the thing. Artists need to remember that. You're going in with a joyous vibe and thinking, okay, yes, now I'm going to do this and that. But when you sign that deal, especially as a major, there's going to be different artists having different terms. The aim is for you to get the best you can get But how do you get that if you're not coming in with leverage? And that's the thing. How do you get that? It's all about learning the game more so. Now, it's broken also, I think, in the industry, because a lot of the time people say, you have to learn the business. You have to learn the business. You do. But if there's sometimes been dodgy and shoddy deals that execs know they're not the best, but they place it in front of people in certain people's situations that aren't the best. Certain artists who are coming up, sometimes they haven't got, the money that's required. So they place things in a position to state, okay, artist, this is what you can get, this is what you can get. But a lot of the time, what they're getting, especially for the majority, is not the best. So even that alone, the mentality to put deals on the table that are not favorable as much as they can be, that has to be questioned too. That's a broken industry. If you're doing things that you know better, but you're still going to put it on the table as an offer because you're basing the artist's ideology that they may not know.
If you talk to anybody who audits their label, they're always owed money. And if nothing else, usually the label holds back enough money that your cost of auditing is such that you won't do it. So that's the business model, is screwing the artists.
Their financial practices have been shady since the beginning of time. It's been grandfathered in since the 50s and 60s when rock and roll really started.
In the 50s, they were screwing the artists then, but there was much, much less money involved. Then as you start to go into the 60s and 70s, the hit to shit ratio is so bad that they're saying, hey, we can't pay the hit artist because he's paying for all the bad artists.
It goes back to how the music industry was set up in the very early stages of the recording industry, taking advantage of uneducated, easily swayed artists who don't really care about the money.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of fallout with bands getting paid. We had to sue our label to get paid.
And they've created this strange, convoluted system that you have to be a lawyer to really understand, or a mathematician.
And for the most part, if you're having to be a mathematician or a lawyer, as the last part of the video shows, to me, again, you may say you have to learn the business. You should as an artist. But it also shows the broken nature of it, because now people are going in with a mentality to try and do one and get one over somebody and get one over based on the fact that they're saying we are an investment company, so we're investing what we're investing, so we're going to try and get as much out. But I also have to question the mentality behind some of the deal structures. That's the question. Do you invest less in certain artists? Do you determine maybe how you have to move a little bit different? Do labels start changing their approach and how they move when it comes to certain artists to be able to come across more fair? Another question is, and I've always thought the industry was broken, master recordings. I believe that's something that shouldn't have the long terms it has. Generally, these terms that they can have can go up to 30 years of labels owning a master recording that artists create music. By the way, the artists create it. Now, you can have writers, you can have producers. They all should have the pie, obviously, on the master. But once you've got the master, you've won. That is the thing that can be used in many, many instances to create big revenue, especially once it's licensed, once it's used in different capacities to commercialize it. So that's even another thing. I think if in general you look at the aspects of the industry that a lot of people have, had gripes with, I think master recordings, if it's artists that have created the music, whoever has written, who has contributed to it, they should have the most when it comes to the ownership. But a lot of the time that's not the case. So you have to be a mathematician, you have to be clued up. But again, the industry is only broken to the artists and not the execs, because the artists are always generally, for the majority of times in the industry, have been the ones at the short end of the stick. And that's for the major label artists a lot of the time. A lot of the time we see what we see, we think everything is all good. But artists, in my humble opinion, should be able to make music and just be able to live off music alone. But artists, really and truly, with the amount of money that music can make, especially if you do well, they should be able to make a living out of music alone.
If you're not getting it touring, or if you're not getting it through other means, this music shit is a rap. I'm saying all of the musicians are broke. Relative to what you bring in.
Now, I do think that there is plenty of ways to make money as independents. Low overhead. It's not expensive to make these albums. You're making them at home or wherever, and you're building a reasonable fan base, and you're selling physical and merch. Not everyone is broke, but in terms of like the superstar thing, I agree with you.
But like you said, so what you're bringing in, what you getting.
And my conversation now is not really about it's not really about independent acts.
Yeah, okay.
My conversation is about what's going on in the majors. They tricking y'all with the words in these contracts. They tricking y'all into thinking that y'all are real partners. They tricking y'all with the hey, you own your stuff. The recent layoffs tell me that. Mm-hmm. You don't see all these people getting laid off?
They laid off all over. They laid off like 40%, right?
Everywhere.
Media too.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And the issues also with artists as well, as to why there are financial issues sometimes with artists and why the industry is broken in many instances is the advent, obviously, of the 360 deal. Now, the 360 deal, created by Jeff Hansen, right? More or less. He was a person that brought the rock group Paramore to Atlantic, and they managed, obviously, to sign a 360 deal. We don't know the particulars. I don't know the particulars of the deal, but they signed a 360 deal. And he was more or less one of the early guys that really, in the early 2000s that brought this to fruition. Now, I remember also in 2002 when Robbie Williams, the singer Robbie Williams, had one with EMI. And that was a big publicized one. But the advent of 360 deals after the Jeff Hansen's creation of it took a turn for the worst in many instances. Not due to Jeff. It's more of what labels started to do. They started to take a crazy amount of the pie. So it was obviously everything that not just involves your music. So they want a piece of that. Things outside of the music, they also want to take a share of that. So that's another thing that really broke parts of the industry. If you're at the higher level of artistry, in terms of you sell a lot, 360, it can even itself out, I guess, because you're one of the high Drake, Kendrick type level artists, J. Cole. If you're in that regard, that's different, But your Taylor Swift's, for example, she even had gripes with her label, and she had many moments of taking them to court for, again, issues when it comes to music and payment. There's always been levels that people have been affected when it comes to artists. But generally, you hear a lot of issues with major artists. So just imagine the people who are the majority who are not at the major level. They're having to do a lot of work. But most importantly, they're having to do, and I will look and advocate for being independent as much as you can for as long as you can. Because at least if you're able to garner the fan base, the support, you've got enough data and analytics, I'm sure, to be able to have more leverage whenever, if you decide to say, you know what, I don't want to use my money no more. I want to hear what these labels are saying. And let's see if there can be something favorable.
Warner Brother got my YouTube hostage. I ain't been assigned to Warner Brothers since fucking 2013. Wow. But these niggas got me in a slave contract, a 360. This when I was knowledgeable. Wow. The fact, I never wanted to fuck with YouTube for the fact that they ran my page. I couldn't even run ads on my shit, get money on my shit, nothing, because they got it. So niggas was hindering me from growing as an artist. That's what made me go to EDM and this, that, and the third. To this day, I'm fighting them. I'm definitely about to try to sue them right now. I ain't even want to do that. It's a point like, yo, my nigga, I don't even want that kind of energy. I'm not putting no music out. I'm not doing nothing. Why the fuck do y'all got my music? You know what I'm saying? I was I did a deal with Warner Chappell as well. I had a publishing. A pub deal. I had a commitment deal. That's like a slave deal.
Give me the blunt.
You know what I'm saying? But guess what Warner Chappell do? Niggas so gangster like, yo, you know what? Basically, niggas respect the legacy. Yo, we're gonna terminate the contract.
Yeah, Warner Chappell's good people.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Warner Chappell go, what the fuck's up with Warner Brothers? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
And the 360 has been something that has also been an issue for your up-and-coming independent artists, especially when they sign deals that they're not too privy on. Not too privy on. So, you're an up-and-coming, and you're an artist, and you sign a deal that's not the best. This is a prime example of what took place with a Canadian artist that I found. Cadence Weapon, where he signed a deal when he was 17. On the come-up, him signing it, and him basically saying he made absolutely nothing. It was a 360 deal. He says, as I traveled the world, I played hundreds of shows, but I was penniless the entire time. Always hungry, living off whatever per diem or rider the venue would give me. when I wasn't on the road, I was a seasonal temp worker in the shipping department at Holt Renfrew in Edmonton, and I wrote for the Alt Weekly papers in town. Prime example of this. He said he signed this in the early 2000s, I believe it was, when he was a teenager. But I believe the record company, Upper Class Recordings, that he was signed to, made it clear that he wasn't making that much money. But you know the artist that you're signing. If you know that maybe the numbers when you first got there wasn't the best, putting certain deals on the table, I don't see the point of it. He probably signed, obviously, because he was young. He probably thought, look, this is the music I want to get into. I want to get into rapping. I want to do my thing. You, the label, know that this person may not be coming in with the numbers. But to have to a point where, if you read his story, he's basically struggling in ways where he's having to get certain things. This is one where it's one of the worst, particularly if you're signing an artist that's on the come up, that may not have that much data behind them, because that's the whole thing now. You need data. Back in the day, you can go to a label, have your demo tape, perform in front of them, not look the best, but you have talent. And then you have an artist development that can make you look the best and sound the best and dress the best, you know? So we're in a different era, but the brokenness is a prime example of a deal like this. These deals shouldn't exist, in my humble opinion, but they do. When CDs were a thing, there were always issues with artists. Prior to that, there were always issues, especially with the vinyl, you know, people who had vinyl at that time, artists who had vinyl. And I'm sure when the MP3 came out, Karl-Heinz Brandenburg created an MP3 probably thinking, okay, I've created something that's going to benefit. But I did not think he probably thought the innocent creation of the MP3 will create the issues I believe we have today when it comes to streaming, and the influx of songs that are easily uploaded to these streaming platforms. Streaming now is at a point where on a daily, you're getting numbers of 100,000 plus songs being uploaded daily. To me, the industry is broken because now you've got a saturated environment. The aim will be, as time has gone on, since streaming has become more popular, to just release music at a high frequency with the aims at streams, which creativity will now be questioned, because you now need to understand, I need to get streams. I need to get these streams. I need to be able to start seeing if I can earn out of this. So let me see if I can create something that is generally the hot sound. Whatever sound that everyone starts jumping on, I'm going to jump on that even more. That's the mentality, I'm sure, with a lot of people streaming, especially if you're looking at the major label artists, especially if you're looking at trying to get to that next point, you know, trying to keep your relevancy, as they say. And that is where I believe, if you're just thinking as an artist of just continually uploading songs at a certain frequency and certain styles of songs, you kill creativity. Because to have 100,000+ uploaded nearly every day from all levels of artists, how do the up and coming artists get seen? Especially with the way algorithms are designed. Creativity won't be the main focus. It will be popularity. It will be a certain sound that is tailored. So only this sound will be pushed initially because it's popular. That is a problem when you have an influx of streams and an influx of the main way for music to be played and discovered. That kills creativity because there's too many people going in one spot. Plus, you're going to have too many people aiming just to create music specifically for a certain sound, and it takes originality. As much as you can keep originality, it takes it out of the music. And that's another big problem, and why the industry is broken. It's too much focus on just streams, influx, volume, what's popular. Let's create algorithms for that.
But the problem with today's music is that people are not releasing songs from a real place, because they can hold a note, put some auto-tune on it, and you don't feel it.
As I was alluding to algorithms, it's been reported that they're the new A&R. They're the ones, the algorithms are the ones that dictate the sound that gets heard, that gets previewed, that gets profiled. If you're an artist and you release music, you better be careful to understand, in the first 12 to 24 hours, they say, it's crucial if you're an up and coming, releasing music. Especially if you're not the one that has garnered enough of that eyes and ears where they're very much in tune and waiting for you, very much enthused, then being able to release music and have your music get somewhere, for the majority of artists, it's going to be tough because of the fact that the algorithm is now dictating what is popular. and whatever is popular will get pushed to the forefront. The algorithms work like this. Spotify's AI model, branded BART, prioritizes user engagement through 3 pillars: natural language lyric analysis, raw audio, mood detection, and collaborative filtering. That collaborative filtering is key. That's another metric that contributes to popularity bias, in my humble opinion. It's where popular items are disproportionately recommended, while niche, unpopular items are neglected for the most part. So, with that influx of streams or streaming music of 120 plus thousand, and that's on Spotify, and just imagine the other platforms if you encapsulate all of them. Let's just say you listen to 1 or 2 of them songs. By the time you know it, your algorithm starts getting collated in ways where they're going to give you that sound again, or different types of artists with that sound. That immediately is killing creativity. That immediately is making an industry broken. How does the other artists who are trying to bring something different, how do they get through? Do they go through maybe by luck, by virality? Do they happen to know someone who knows someone who knows someone that can get them in front of certain important people? These are the questions. But stuff like these algorithms, they're the ones that kill the game as well, especially with the way they're designed. They don't have to be designed like that, but they are, because it's easier to make something work when it's popular. It's easier to make money out of something that's popular. It's always been about a predatorial like way. Can I make the most out of it? That's the question for most execs. And artists should be thinking that too. Can I make the most out of it if I know what this industry is? I'm going to enter it at the understanding that it's broken, but what can I get out of it? Or do you make your own way? That's the question. But I believe the answer should be make your own way as much as you can. Assemble the smartest, the best, the most infused about what you are as a person and what your project is and what the mission is, and go. It's going to take maybe certain times different for different people. But from what I've seen from a lot of the independent artists, there's been some good instances of artists showing that, look, it's possible if we stay down. Best bet is to work with your audience if you can create one. And that will at least nullify the need for having to compete with this nonsense. Because in my opinion, having stuff that's based around popularity with the way algorithms are, that immediately is a broken industry, from the fact that you're having to have a popular sound for yourself as an artist to be noticed. That is a broken industry immediately from that perspective. There's a stat that shows generally out of about 13 million people on Spotify, 250,000 plus, I believe, are considered professional artists. Now, professional and aspiring artists who are active on a platform, that generally is artists who have released 10 songs or more on a platform, have been categorized by Spotify as professional. People that want to create music and are doing it with the notion and the understanding that they are an artist, a fully fledged one. Now, more than 81,000 of them, 32%, generated at least 10K of payouts from Spotify last year. This was in 2025. And that's a payout at the end of the year. This is not like monthly. This is just the end of the year payout. And 13,000 of them, 5%, generated at least 100,000. And 1,500 generated over $1 million. But that does mean that around 169,000 professional and aspiring artists, 67% of them generated less than 10K of Spotify payouts in 2025. If you look at these numbers and you see the majority of artists are not, again, majority are not making enough from their music, it puts in perspective that the majors, it's always about, again, continually making the most they can make. And again, if it's an investment company, I get that aspect, but it's how artists at a mid-level or an up-and-coming level have to look at the game. They have to look at it like, it's an investment company too. If I sign, I'm signing with an investment company. They will have to invest in me and I will have to pay them back. Once you've got that, if you're happy with that, cool. But I think it's best that if you are an artist, coming up is best to gain as much leverage as you can. So you're not in that position where if you're not doing what's required, that money they invested gets put into the next project, meaning you're still in debt in the second project, in the third project, if you're not proving viable enough to sell. Irrespective, if you're not doing what's required, you will be indebted to them. You will be in debt. If that first project don't go, but I would advocate for a broken industry for people to enter and say they want to do certain things with certain labels. I wouldn't advocate for it. I would say create your own lane, because the numbers I just showed you are not that special when it comes to the majority of artists in terms of the earning. Live music is also an issue in the UK and US. There's been issues with live venues closing over 30 of them closing in the UK, grassroots level. So people that are coming up trying to be discovered and seen and create and collaborate and network, those venues are now being taken out. They're not making profits, it's said. It's said also in the US, there's issues with their venues being closed. If they're not making profit, as it's said, if they're not making, new employees become a thing, because they're saying that it's even down by 22% in the UK with these live venues that have closed, and employment has diminished by that percentage, then you've got a question. What is happening with the industry for the majority of artists? People that have been discovered in the UK, in the US, many names, and some of the known venues, are now getting closed. So it's a broken industry. If these things exist, any era you look at, it's always the minority of artists that manage to get through. If they even keep their sanity. This industry now is all data-based, data. Oh, what's your social media saying? Oh, what's your TikTok? What's your stream saying before we even start having a conversation? So if you should know that, how are you going to best place yourself if you're trying to come into this thing and try and say, I want to work with such and such label, such and such business, so I can create music and do the things I want to do? With this industry brokenness and all these changes with streaming and all this saturation of, the sound, you have to make something popular for it to really be seen. Hopefully this can wake people up to say, you know what, I am going to try and create something different and be my own boss. I am going to try and assemble this person, that person to help the push, marketing, social media management, whatever it is that's going to try and get that connection going with the artists and fan, because it's becoming crazy. And then on top of that, with the advent of AI, there's even AI generative platforms being created in ways where there's been money made at a crazy level. AI generated music became a 4 billion fraud machine. Generative AI made it easy to produce and distribute fraudulent music at scale. A study projects that nearly 25% of creators' revenues are at risk by 2028, potentially amounting to 4 billion euros, and that's over $4 million. So Deezer, the streaming platform, they're the first streaming platform to independently detect and tag AI generated music at the platform level in January 2025. AI and its capabilities can do in the industry, especially if it's allowed. And if it's allowed, industry is broken. Prime example, because you're only now focusing on money, you're going to try and take people's songs, make versions of them, and try now, I believe, and make deals with artists so they can create AI music. These companies are going to try and say, you know what, artist A or artist B at the high level, how about we take your likeness, make songs, and we can split the revenue from the royalties and from the sales. Some artists, if they're not careful and they're only thinking about the money, they will do it and nullify the credibility of their artistry. On top of that, the persons who are on the up and coming mid-level, how can they compete now if popularity is the main thing that these algorithms check for? How about something like this doesn't get off the ground? Deezer had to purge their platform. How about something like this AI generative stuff doesn't get accepted by artists? How about that? But are artists going to do that? Are labels going to be more inclined to say, you know what, let's just do this because maybe we can, position it in ways where the artist will benefit? But if artists are going to be daft to do this and accept it, then there's no point. Where are we going? The question will be, you may say, oh, it's opening up more doors. People may say that's out of position. It's opening up more doors for more artists to have their music out there. No, you're just remixing using AI and saying it's music. And you want the listener, the smarter listener who gives a about his music, to take that? No. And this is where people have to think. Are you going to operate and accept the broken nature of this industry with these kinds of things being a thing? Or are you going to say, you know what, this don't make no sense. We need the real artists, real people continually making music from their actual voice, tone, ideas and thoughts. And also AI music is flooding streaming platforms, but listeners like it less and less, a report showed. Music fans are becoming increasingly uncomfortable with AI songs, according to a recent report published by the music and entertainment insights company Luminate. The decline is especially notable with young listeners, though, who are part of Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha aren't taking the nonsense. They're not taking remix versions of someone's data and saying, we're going to hear that and play that. Because all you're doing is taking the data that exists, and Spotify have hundreds of thousands of data Imagine what they can do with that. Artists are not looking at the fact that they can have data themselves, staying independent as much as they can, as long as they can afford. But the way to do that is to start changing your mentality. But even if it means certain artists in certain even genres to do that, because certain stigmas, for example, in rap, oh, you're working, it has a stigma. It shouldn't, but it's just a mentality that needs to shift, because the main aim should be to create. So however you get to do that and to fund it, do it. Not anything dodgy though, if you know what I mean. But my point is just being in a position to understand where you are as an artist as you're on the come up, or as you're in the industry. Let's just say you're mid-level and you haven't got to that level yet, but I'm talking financially. If you're an artist on the come up and you're in the game, just being able to always acquire the right information and assess people's actions, assess if people are really about what they're saying, take personal feelings out of it. It's business. Until you meet someone that shows you it's not just business, it's business. But you will only know issues are there when the chips are down. So people want to mess with you only when you're popping as an artist. So understand that aspect. The industry is broken because when you're up, that's when people are there. When you're not, that's when people aren't. So understand what the industry is. In many instances, it's about getting to it. The minute you stop getting to it, people are on to the next. The big three, as they're called, you know, the Warner, the Sony, the Universal, they are investing in an AI company called Clay, and they're looking to do licensing deals with music, AI music too. So the wheels are already being in motion for these things. The current climate with AI, the current climate with streaming, the current climate with deals being what they are, to invent AI and to say we're going to potentially create music that is not more or less authentic, it's broken. Do you really want to be a part of that? Or do you want to create your own lane and say, you know what, let's try this. Let's use these social media platforms. Let's try and garner as much data and leverage as one can. And then even choose to say, you know what, I don't want that industry in the way that's required as a major. I don't want it. Someone can say, if you're managing to create leverage so you can nullify these AI companies that are being created to try and infiltrate music, especially music that's not even real. AI is a form of manipulation. And I guarantee you, AI companies will come to these artists, as I've alluded to already, and say, why don't we do a deal? We'll take your data, we'll create music. What we sell from it, we'll make a deal. You get royalties. Desperate artists will try and sign up for this, unfortunately, and continually keep breaking the aspects of the game. And maybe the game needs to get broken, to be fair, because it was never set up with good intentions a lot of the time. Making your own way, making your own lane, and try and improve your creativity and make music with something that has some substance in it. Something that's actually going to benefit others, benefit people, benefit the environment, you know? And maybe people can wake up and start saying, you know what? We're going to stand for something a bit more and be more on a unified front as individuals who are actually people who create, for real humans to create music as it's always been, all the way from Africa, from the days of the drum. Maybe we're going to start standing for something so you're not in the mercy of some of these deals and some of these issues that are taking place within it. But I would want to know what people think.